my opening presentation just to kind of like get the ball rolling. Okay, so a little bit about myself. This is what I generally do. Yes, so I'm a game designer by training, and then I also manage game projects, run game jams from time to time. You might have heard of it. And then I also occasionally teach game design when I have the time, and I need the money. Some of my favorite movies are Oppenheimer. Just kidding. Okay, so this is a bit of my history. So I was in Digipen for 4 years. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Game Design. And then I proceeded to work at various things on the side as well. I currently run my own side gig called Alter Culture Studios. That's my own company. But my main day job is also at Living Theories, which is a gamification company. I used to work at Civil Service College for a very short minute, and that's where I met Russell, who used to be my colleague. And then I collaborated with Singapore Games Association, which Sean is from. And then, of course, Siah, this ground-up collective. We have been running game jams for the last 3 years. Yes. Okay, no, it's okay. All right, so for this masterclass, I'm really going to be doing a very short presentation on the very basic stuff, which is the role of responsibility as a game designer, where are games now and heading towards, and how do we incorporate games into one's craft. So I actually deleted like 2 versions of this starting presentation for a while because it's like what to teach y'all. Then I realized that hey, actually maybe I don't really need to teach y'all anything because y'all are all creatives, but it's like how do you think about games and incorporating that into your own craft as non-games, right? I think that's the most important part. What goes in the head of a game designer? What are some of the very basic considerations that will turn your experience into a more gameful one? So it will not be cover every single thing, but I think it's the important parts. So yes, I think to start it off, the main thing about being a game designer is it's ultimately a conversation between you and the player, right? I think many of the times we think about our crafts as like, hey, you print a book or you make a movie, and then they watch or read, right? And that's great. But in a game where you are literally handing them over some control, I think it's important to note that hey, they are going to be experiencing what you give to you, and their actions in some ways are replies to the system that you have built. So it's an ongoing conversation between you and the player. And so here are some of the key considerations. I'm going to be going through each of them into some depth. Okay, so, all right. Anybody has seen this game before? Okay, Game of Anybody has played this game before? Yes, I have. I had too, because it was my year 1 assignment and I had to write a whole essay about it. It was very dry and very boring, but it's okay. The important thing is that it is the first oldest game in the world, right? And I think that's so fascinating that it looks so ornate. There are a lot of details in it, and it looks like a predecessor to maybe some of the games that we know today, right? And then we fast forward, right, to today where we have all sorts of different technologies, and I think that's the fascinating part. I think that games have really shaped and changed because of technology. We've realized that the act of interacting with a system, right, can be enhanced with technology, and there are many, many different options that we can choose from. Of course, oops, sorry, Sean, can I have a back, please? Back. Oh, video is so soft. No, okay. Yes, thank you. And I think maybe some of these experiences actually came out of COVID. Anybody has heard of Eschaton? This is super niche. Yes, you've heard Eschaton? Oh my god, great. You've heard of Eschaton? Okay, yes. So Eschaton was a game that was created during COVID period. So what happened was a lot of the New York Broadway actors, performers, they were put out of their jobs because nobody was going out. And so someone thought of a very ingenious way to kind of use their talents, right, during this time of COVID, right? So they're like, oh, how do we put on a performance via Zoom in a way that will be interesting? Who here has used Zoom? Please tell me that you have used Zoom and you're not. You have used Zoom? Thank you for nodding your head and pretending that it. Yes, so Zoom is very different from some of the platforms out there because you can create rooms, you can create a password to the room, right? And so what would happen was they had a website and you would sign up for it. And then when you go into the Zoom room, you kind of like have a host of like a nightclub, right? And he would be acting as the nightclub host, being very big in his actions and words, and be like, hey, have a good time. And occasionally they will talk about the other characters or the other performers in the nightclub. And so they will drop hints, send you links to other Zoom rooms, or you can even navigate around their website for hidden links and passwords, right? And in that sense, it's almost like a game already, right? It's like you have to pay attention to the details, right? Figuring out the relationships between the different characters, who slept with who dislikes who loves who had a relationship, like all these are the mini things. Whilst they're doing things like magic performances, DJing, dancing, sword holding, there's a lot of different acts. So it was very cool how, I mean, I guess in times of desperate need, we actually innovate some of the most interesting things ever. And I remember being part of Eschaton, as an attendee, and it was always sold out like week after week. Right. So I think even when we think about technology, right, VR, AR, all these very exciting tech, sometimes the most maybe not so modern, the more basic tech, right, communications can be used to our advantage as well. The other advantage of using Zoom is that everybody at the time used Zoom. So there is no fear of like, oh, they don't know have controls, right? They can't afford a VR set, no, none of that. So that's the other advantage as well. Next. Oh no. Okay. JT. Sorry. Okay, find out. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yes. All right. I'm going to play a clip. No. The YouTube video. Thank you. Yes. So this is Tempest. It is an immersive theater in VR. Yes. Is that sound? Oh, right.
To us by a mysterious, omnipotent being. Just then, a towering figure appears in the sky above us and commands that each of us act as if we've lost our minds. The craziest performance would earn said player a mysterious prize. I began to frantically wave my arms about the air as if possessed by the underworld's clumsiest ghost. Hopping onto the table, I began tossing food throughout the dining area, and even at the godlike creature itself. Pleased with my unstable behavior, my generous overlord dubbed me the most unstable of the group, at which point I was awarded my hard-earned treasure. This is just a small sample of the Under Presents Tempest, a 40-minute interactive VR theater experience performed live on Oculus Quest and PC VR headsets. Hosted on Tenderclaw's immersive theater platform, The Under Presents, this interactive VR experience takes audiences through a one-of-a-kind live performance of William Shakespeare's classic play, The Tempest, completely reimagined for the VR format. Unlike conventional stage plays, The Under Presents Tempest relies heavily upon audience participation. The players serve as both the actors and the stagehands, resulting in an immersive theatrical experience unlike anything you'll find running on Broadway. Recently, I had the opportunity to take the virtual stage alongside a handful of other theatergoers tuning in remotely from the comfort of their homes. Led by a professional actor also tuning in via VR, our group was transported from whimsical location to whimsical location as we acted our way through a uniquely crafted rendition of the classic play. At certain points, it almost felt like performing a grade school play with the world's most patient teacher. Taking the shape of several different characters throughout the course of the show, our host/director.
All right, yes, so I think that's enough. You can check it out yourself. So yes, again, this was done maybe around this same time period as COVID as well, I think, where they literally allowed you to step into a fictional universe, right? Oops, sorry, my mouse. that they have created. So what happened was these theater practitioners, they actually collaborated with a VR team to create these environments, right? And so players can then step into the universe and they would directly one-on-one interact with the audience members just as you would with immersive theater, right? So this is, again, not necessarily new in the format, but the fact that you can integrate a fictional world, right, and make it so immersive in a sense is also a very cool way to use VR. So I'm just showing the different ranges of how you might want to use technology to your advantage. Okay, so yes, I have this slide on because, why did I have this slide on? I have this slide on because I wanted to talk about how technology obviously also affects us in terms of generation. So the XYZ is generation. Yes, right, so I think...
what's the first thing?
Oh, you don't know, is it? Oh, it's what you call Generation X. Are you familiar with it? So I would say that most of us here are Generation Y in spirit. Some of us here are Generation Z, and that's okay. If you're from X, don't be ashamed. Are you from X? Yes, I know. I know you're from X. And my point is that I think when we think about, oh, this technology is so cool, right? Who are we really designing it for? What technologies are they used to? I think I remember I was watching this one TikTok of an ex-Blizzard employee. He makes the best TikToks ever, and he was talking about how he did a play test for some kids at a con, right? And so I think you know which video. Huh? Yeah, exactly, right. And so what he did was he says, oh, at first they put like a keyboard and a mouse, right, and then a touchpad. No, a keyboard, a mouse, and a controller, right? And then 50% of the kids that came up, right, didn't know how to use the keyboard and the mouse, so they only approached the controller. So they're like, okay, never mind, we tried it again. So they took away the keyboard and mouse, and then they put 2 controllers, right? Can you all guess what happened next? Those that did not watch the video. Okay, so 50% of the kids pushed away the controllers and started touching the screen because they didn't know what a controller is. You all feel old now? So I know I did, right? So I think it's about really understanding like, hey, maybe some of the things that we thought were intuitive are not so intuitive after all. And I think these are some of the considerations that we have as a game designer. You always need to know what's out there, and it can be tiring, but I think when you have a community, it makes it a lot easier because you don't have to search for so much information. Oh, it's okay, we're okay with time because we cut Sonia's segment. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes. But ultimately, I mean, do remember that like games, right, don't need technology at all, right? Like some of the best games that are the most nostalgic and the ones that we had the most fun, right? Can you guess my age yet? Is when we have nothing, right? So tag is a very famous example. I'm sure you have playground games, right? And so ultimately, like, technology has a potential to enhance the experience, but really it's about the rules and systems that you make or break the game, right? I think even if you have no tech at all, even if it's just yourselves, right? If you are improvisative, right? If you have nothing, right? You can still make a good game that can emote and evoke, right? Yes, let me see. Okay, next one I'll move on to is player attitudes. Okay, so like, this is my mom. She was very nice. She drove me today because I had to transport 3 cases of water and lots of snacks. So thank you, Mom. Yes, and also thank you for being supportive of my career as a game designer, which she is not in this photo. So I think back then I was not really a game designer per se, but I was playing a lot of games, and obviously she scolded me a lot. It's like, why aren't you studying harder? The PSLE is coming already. I'm not 12 in this photo, if you're concerned. And so, but then I think the kicker is that now she herself is playing games. She's playing Merge Dragons on her phone while she is doing work, as you can see from the computer screen in front of her. And this is really because why? I mean, even they have kind of like succumbed to it, right? It's everywhere, all around us. But also, think about it. They play. So my mom is 60 this year, 61, I think, and she plays Merge Dragons, right? But would she tell you that she plays games? If you ask her, do you play game? most people of our generation, even though they play things like Merge Dragons, right, they'll just say no for some weird reason, right? It's because I think they don't think of what we here, except you, we are playing as the same game as Merge Dragons, right? They are thinking, oh, it's just a mini distraction. So I think sometimes we presume that they don't play games, but actually they do. Actually, they've been exposed to it already. And sometimes it's about moving that needle and allowing them to try something different. I think maybe those from here who have maybe experimented games in your craft, you have met similar audiences, right? You are exposing them to a format to their sort of familiar with, but not really. And then sometimes there might be some weird reactions as their brains are trying to figure out whether this is for me or not, right? So in the same way, I think like player attitudes have been shifting over the years, and sometimes you might also hear people, like when you ask them, what do you like about this game? What do you play? Right? They say, oh, it helps me distress, or I play it because the game is cute. I play it because I love the mechanics to tell a story. Or I play it because my friends are playing it and I want to spend time with them, right? There are multiple reasons why people want to play games. Sometimes, and that's not under our control, right? We try to attract the type of people, the type of players who will like our game, and that's where like brand marketing comes and all that comes in, but I'm not going to get into that. The thing that I think is more important, right, is to understand that ultimately there are many types of players, so which type are we appealing to? Who are we making it for? And therefore we just focus on the crowd that would enjoy our game, right, and not try to please everybody. So yeah, this is a little bit more of an updated chart to Bartle's player types, B-A-R-T-L-E. If you're not familiar with it, you can go Google it. I'm not here to teach frameworks, but my point is to illustrate that there are many reasons why people want to play games. Sometimes they want to interact with a lot of people, they like the extroverts, or they like a sense of community. Some of them just want to feel better about themselves and want to hit high score, right? Because they want to feel like they have achieved something. And so there are many reasons. I think when it comes to specifically this game jam, right, because we are all artists here, I think I just want to highlight that it is acceptable for us to tell our story through the game, but just remember that you are giving a pair of shoes, right, to the player, right, to walk in, and you have to remember that that these pair of shoes should be properly fitted, because if it's uncomfortable, right, they might be distracted, right, and therefore they will not be able to enjoy or experience the game that you intended for them to, right? I think that sense of agency that you're giving them comes with an extra responsibility that you always have to be mindful of in your design. Okay, the last part, application. So I think this is more general. So as you can see here, there are many different types of games of our modern era. Who here does not know at least one of these types on the screen? Like they've never seen, heard. Which one? 剧本杀. They never heard 剧本杀. 剧本杀. It's not 剧本杀. It's 剧本杀, Mandarin. Yes, 剧本杀. Anybody else? Serious games. Serious games are like educational games or like edutainment, right? Things that are used for serious application.
What's a walking simulator?
Who can tell him? Who can tell her what's a walking simulator? Oh, okay. Well, a walking simulator used to be a derogatory term for a game that the only mechanic is for you to walk around, right? And have you heard of the game What Happened to Edith Finch? Or the Stanley Parable, right? Those are walking simulators. It's a bit of a slightly outdated term. When I say outdated, it means like 10 years ago. It's really not that long ago. How many guys? But it's basically at a time people criticize walking simulators for not being very interactive because the only thing you can do is to walk around. But it's also the best format to tell a story, right? Because it kind of like help captive in that path, and it also allows players that maybe are not do not have the most finesse with their fingers, right? They can just walk around and still enjoy the narrative. So that's a walking simulator. So my point is, right, so a lot of these different types of games are up and coming. Some are being redone, reimagined, merged genres, right, like what we are doing in this very event. And so I thought that it is important to keep in mind that to not lock ourselves into different genres, but more like what is our intention when we are doing these games, what do we hope to achieve. This is a game that I'm currently working on. It's called the One Earth Challenge under my company Living Theories. So this is an example of a serious game. Right? We are building this game for primary school kids because we want to teach them about car-like behavior. And so what we'll do is, in the morning when they wake up, the mommy daddy send them to school, then at the gate they'll have a QR code to scan, and then they'll say, oh, I came to school by car or by bus, or I walked here. Okay? And then depending on what transport they took, it will affect the world health within the game itself. So if more people take car, the health of the world will drop. Right? And then there will be some consequences within the game. But then they also get to log into the game after school, right? And then they will get to maybe try to learn more about what does it mean to save the environment, right? Talk to different characters, build relationships, very Animal Crossing. So yeah, this is something that we are rolling out in March next year, right? And this is an example of a serious game. But I think the reason why I'm proud of this game with my team is because I think we always look out for the engagement angle. Many a times, serious game designers would be purely focused on like the data and the statistics, but we really look out for like, hey, we need to make this feel as gamey as possible, the way that we enjoyed it as when we were kids. Right? So this is an example of a serious game. And so three things that I always tend to look out for whenever we're making a game is the first one, which is the immersion. Second one is agency, and then the third one is goal. So the first one, immersion. Who here does not know what the magic circle is? The concept of the magic circle. Okay, right. So the magic circle is a concept that I believe is also apparent in theatre, right? Is an idea that whenever you play a game, right, you have to almost step into the space of the game and like, and you start following the rules, right? Like, so for example, you must roll a dice, right? Or you cannot walk beyond this wall because it's Super Mario, right? And you just follow the rules without questioning it, right? Why is that so? Well, because you know that you are playing a game, and then so you're stepping into that magic circle, right? And then the minute the game ends, you walk out of the magic circle, right? And then those rules don't apply to you anymore, right? And I believe when you're doing like D&D, for example, there's a very strong example, right? You are the facilitator or the DM gives you session 0 tools, your character sheets, right? Anything to make you believe that you are that character when you are playing the game, right? You step in, right? Even if you have arguments within the game amongst yourselves, you'll be like, hey, joke, boss. Then you step out of the circle and then you start arguing with your friend about like what you did within the circle was correct or not, right? Right or not? Yes. Yes. So that is the magic circle. And I think as game designers, it is our role to understand how do we get them in, right? If you're building a digital game, it's easy. They download the EXE, they install it, they go into the game. That's their way of entering the magic circle. But if you're doing something more physical, where there's no EXE, right? How do you get them in? So earlier I mentioned D&D, you have your DMs, facilitation. In theatre as well, some people are used to going to watching live plays, but they may not be prepared about like, oh, I have to do something during the play. Wow, Siah, I didn't pay to be the actor, you know. Right? So you have to tell them upfront, you are going into immersive theatre, right? It is expected, it is the norm. And I think more people are catching on to it nowadays, right? Slowly. So yes, thinking about the immersion. And then agency, right? So ABC, actions, boundaries, consequences, right? What are the tools that you are giving them as actors in your game? What can they do? What can they not do? Right? And those are your boundaries. Boundaries could be as simple as I cannot walk out of this room, right? It's within these 4 walls, or please do not be disrespectful to the other players. That's all boundaries. And consequences. Who typed that? JT, you're fired. I typed it, I'm just kidding. Consequences, right? So consequences are essentially things like, if a player does something, they expect something to happen. So for example, right, if you say that, oh, in this game you're allowed to raise your hand, right? And then if someone raises their hand, but nothing happens when they raise their hand, they're gonna make them feel a lot of feel lost or even anxious, right? And sometimes there are actions that are things that you didn't plan for. So for example, let's say I didn't say to you all today that you all are, okay, here's the rule. Okay. Anyways, sorry, hold on. Do I only have 3 more minutes?
You're going about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
5 to 8.
Okay, I'll skip this part. So consequences, basically, right, everything you plan for must always have a result. Okay, and lastly, goal. Okay, where are they going towards? Right, if I say today we're going to end at 6 p.m. right, but if I don't give you a timing at all, you'll be like, hey, how long is this? You'll be very lost as well. You need a direction to work towards. Right, give them a schedule, tell them what is to be expected. Okay, all right. So to summarize, right, these are some of the things they can ask yourselves. Right, if it's tech. Right? Why do I need to use tech? Right? What sort of tech will allow me to pull off things that are beyond this physical realm? Using active participation as a method of framing, storytelling, and active engagement. Is that something I want to do? Maybe it is about actually giving them a very experimental sandbox space, right? Because I want them to have a dialogue with me, with the system, with each other, right? So that whatever they come up with on the spot is unique to them. And if it's unique to them, does it result in them doing some form of introspection, right? So particularly about the introspection part.
Next slide.
Next slide.
See, I'm useful.
Sorry, I have some slides that like went completely missing. Okay, never mind. No wonder there's only a job. Okay, never mind. I'll just off the top of my head. So I think, have you heard about D&D being used in prison? Yes, I'm sure that it has. So D&D in prison is a thing. In fact, now they are banning D&D in prisons because it's too dangerous. So stupid. But D&D was so helpful to the prisoners because it gave them a space to kind of, step into their magic circle, forget where they are, but also like discover things about their own character. After they play through the character, they woke up and they're like, hey, actually, I didn't realize that my actions to my character would have such consequences, right? They're role-playing it out, and that can be very helpful in healing to them, right? And so I think that is the sort of introspection, right, that we are talking about. Things that will allow you to reflect about what you're doing in real life that you did in the magic circle. So is that the sort of outcome that you want for your own experience as well? That could be really helpful. Okay, I want to show one video example. Oh, no. Okay, so I just want to use this game to kind of, again, highlight the player experience a little bit. Full screen, please. Thank you.
Chance of Sinar is a puzzle game developed by Runedisc. You play as a traveler who finds themselves in a land with no understanding of the local languages, but needs to learn enough to communicate and pass through. The main puzzle is piecing together contextual clues to understand the different languages of the places you go. As you explore, you'll find art with captions, signs designating locations, and talk to locals to try and piece together what they're saying. It takes a lot of brain power to use all of the context clues and keep track of what words show up where in order to figure out each word's meaning. And it kept me captivated the whole time I was playing. Guessing the correct meaning of a word and putting together the fragmented pieces of information you find across the level made me feel clever and rewarded me with a better understanding of the world and the ability to advance with confidence. The lack of a map, along with the low-detailed landscape and simple color palette of each section, made the environment feel a bit maze-like. This, coupled with occasionally getting a bunch of new words with no idea what they meant, made me feel like I missed something critical and was about to hit a wall. However, in my 10 hours of play, every time I kept pushing forward, explored new areas, and backtracked to recontextualize the words I found, I was eventually rewarded with enough clues and context to advance. When you read a word, it shows up in your journal, and you can fill in what you think it means. When you find that word in the world, it will put your guess over the word. When you do discover enough words to finish a small pictograph correctly, it confirms a handful of words and automatically translates them anytime you encounter them. It's intuitive and made guessing and changing the meanings of words easy throughout my playthrough. While the story and characters are thin, their purpose seems to be aiding the...
Okay, thank you. All right, so next slide, please. So yes, this is one of my favorite games, Chance of Sonar. It's a short game. Go try it out. It is basically almost like you travel to a foreign country simulator, right? Like, and there's a language you completely do not know anything about. That's not the slide. Hold on. Back. Yes, this one. Okay, thank you. All right. So yes, I think there was some key phrases that he said in there that I really liked, right? So it takes a lot of brain power, right? That is referring to the challenge of the game, right? The way that the player is engaged, right? But he also says that even though it's difficult, it made him feel captivated, it made him feel clever, right? It rewarded me with an understanding of the world, advanced with confidence, very big words, intuitive, right? Like, all these are very positive feelings that he got from the entire experience, even though it's hard, right? And I think as game designers, we also need to think about what sort of emotions are tied to the experience of conquering said challenge or navigating your world, right? Everything from the visuals to the systems, to the rules, to the way that you navigate with your controller, right? I think games in itself is already especially in this time of age, a multidisciplinary product, right? And so when we have all of you creators in the space here, integrating games in your work, it's going to get even more complex, and that is very exciting, right? But yes, unlike, as I've highlighted earlier, unlike maybe more passive crafts, the player experience is really important. I hope that you all do at least try and map that out. What does that player experience look like over time, from the beginning all the way to the end, right? And when they have a good player experience, that is when I think the narrative would connect with them, right? And so I think that is most what I have to share. I just want to end with a little bit of a plug. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yes. So my own company, Outer Culture Studios, we are going to be releasing soon a social healing game. Yumi over here is my programmer, so thank you, Yumi, for the hard work. Yes. And so this game is essentially a game where you are connecting with other people, asking each other's questions, and then you draw based on what you feel. And so we created this game in the spirit of mental health as well, and we're presenting it on the 10th of December, which is next Sunday from 12 to 6 p.m. We have a booth over there, so if you have some free time and you don't mind traveling all the way to Yishun, yes, Yishun, I said that right. Please go check it out. There are also other social impact games. So if you're keen to see like, hey, how are other people doing games in interesting ways and applying it to everyday life, do go check it out. It's a great event. I think Russell's company will be there also, right? Playlog. Yes, Playlog will also be there. Yes. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time. I will now hand the time over to Russell. Yes.